And this month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by Super Inframan, Allison Cook, and Eric Hervin. Thank you all so very much for your incredible support.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? And tonight I have back again Red Pill Junkie.
Good evening.
And a returning Michael Hughes.
Good to be back. It's been a long time.
It's been a
long plague-filled time.
I was going to say, it's been at least a pandemic's age.
Yeah. How are things in Fairyland?
In Fairyland? Oh, Maryland or Fairyland?
No, Fairyland. As in, you probably were abducted by the people.
Yeah, it feels like it sometimes, that's for sure. This year plus has felt in a lot of ways like many years, kind of like super condensed into one. But it's also nice to feel like we're kind of coming out on the other side of it. So
I hope so.
Yeah, so it's really good to be back. It's good to be back talking to you guys as well.
And so we had done a show talking about some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight with you, Red Pill, and Chris Ernst, and I think Super Inframan. Is that what we did?
Yes.
Yeah, and we did a Patreon. No, we did the listener story show, and then we did a Patreon segment talking about this stuff. I think it was you and Chris initially, and then we did the Patreon thing, and by the time I put the Patreon segment out, some of this stuff had already changed.
Dramatically so. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of stuff going on. So we're recording this. I'm going to put it up this week. I'm not going to put it up in order of other stuff we have because I have a few other shows already in the can. But this is sort of like current UFO stuff. And who wants to start with what's going on?
Oh, God. Why don't you do the honors, Michael? I mean, you're been the one.
Oh, God. It's such a cluster. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. And what shocked me today, and I've been sort of in and out of UFO Twitter, so I was a little behind on the curve, but I knew that Jacques Vallee's book, which looked like this, this major announcement sort of book about astounding new revelations in the world of UFOs. I knew that it was sort of being pulled, but today I got my official notice from Amazon that the book was being canceled completely. I'd never seen that happen before with a book that was in the stages of pre-sales and being marketed and that sort of thing. So I started asking around. I had also seen that he had palled up with what's her name, Paola
Harris.
Yeah, and I only had sort of a vague notion of who she was and that she was associated with Greer and some other folks I don't have a really very high opinion of. But what someone told me, and RPJ, maybe you can clarify this because I'm still not entirely sure, was that Vallee book is now folded into the book with her. Is that correct? And it's a crash retrieval book, which maybe you've got a better grasp on all the details behind that.
I don't think I do, but I'll give it a try. So yeah, I think that it was in February, probably of this year, when Vallee went and had an interview with Joe Rogan, right? Mm-hmm. With also accompanying James Fox, who was at the time promoting his latest documentary, The Phenomenon, and Jacques dropped that he was about to release a book that he said it will change the history of the phenomenon. As I think that's the way he put it. And yeah, the book appeared on the Amazon Kindle store as the best kept secret, right? And a lot of people, me included, thought, well, this book surely will cover his latest investigations with regards to these alleged UFO samples or UFO metal debris, slag, sometimes is what they use to refer it to, that he has been investigating with the help of Dr. Gary Nolan, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, he's going to probably cover that and maybe cover other things. And I think we all expected some kind of like tour de force, because, well, let's be realists here. I think the Vallee in his 80s.
Yeah.
He's not getting any younger. Well, none of us, of course. And with the kind of like output he's had, it looked like this could very well be his last book, right? Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, the book was supposed to be released on May the 4th. And it was there was a chance to, like you said, to pre-order it. And then the book kind of like disappeared from the Amazon store, and nobody knew what was going on. At first, the rumors that began to circulate among the UFO online community is that, well, maybe the publisher, or maybe even Vallee, because at this point it is unknown if there is a publisher, or if Vallee is self-publishing it by all on his own. So the first rumor is, well, maybe the publisher realized that it wasn't such a good idea to release the book first and only as an ebook. So maybe they're going to postpone the release of the book so they can offer also a paperback edition. But then, I think it was the very same day that we had our conversation with Eric and Inframan, Super Inframan Seriah, is when all of a sudden there was like this breaking news of people posting the new cover of Vallee's book, which now had been changed from The Best Kept Secret to Trinity, The Best Kept Secret. But not only that, now the book had an additional co-author who was Paula Harris. You know, this like you, Michael, I'm not really that knowledgeable about her research, I guess because she is into things I'm not particularly interested in. I think she's very well focused on Stephen Bassett's exopolitics angle, which to me is a lot of nonsense. That's my own personal opinion. Mm-hmm. And now it seems that the book is heavily focused on this story of a UFO crash that supposedly happened in 1945, 2 years before the famous or infamous alleged crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. So this story, I think, has been covered by Paula Harris in her books, in one of her books, Exopolitics, that was published in 2011. And I think there's also another book that was written by the one of the two main witnesses, who were children at the time. I think one of them had 7 years old, the other was 9. Were Hispanic children. I think one of their names is Jose Padilla, and the other one is Remy. I don't remember Remy Vaca. I don't remember his last name. fully, but supposedly they observed the crash of a rounded object on August 1945, like 1 month after the famous nuclear test at Trinity in Alamogordo, New Mexico. So these kids, the story goes, were hiding and they saw the object that looked, some people describe it as some kind of like giant avocado, which to me is very funny. And they saw that there were entities, there. And then they saw the army going and collecting everything. But apparently they managed to, get a few samples of the materials or the metals of these objects. And this is a story that then has already been covered. It's not new, It's not that groundbreaking. But apparently what is groundbreaking is that Vallee has apparently uncovered more evidence. And also another thing why apparently the book was postponed is because a third witness surfaced all of a sudden, right? And because of that is that they decided that it was necessary to rewrite a large portion of the book, and that's what it was. First, it was all the pre-orders were canceled, and now the book is on hold as it is being rewritten. And rumor is that the final release will be by June 1st, which, interestingly enough, will probably coincide also with the release of this highly anticipated UAP task force report that is being prepared by people in the Pentagon to try to, well, I don't know, depend on what you and who you ask. Some people say, well, will be the final confirmation that the government knows all about UFOs, or it will be something else. But the fact that all this is kind of like chained together and all these things are coinciding, it doesn't feel like a coincidence to me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The description of the object I heard was actually acorn-shaped, and it reminded me of the Kecksburg UFO incident, which was in 1965. Well,
there are. I think there is an image. I'm sure it's an artistic recreation. I might be able to show you. There's a link I have open right now on my tablet that I will share to you guys. Mind you, this is an article that is in Spanish, but I think it will be a problem because all you need to do is just see the images, right? And there, okay, there you go.
Yeah, I had seen a mention of the book and what happened on Linda Howe's site.
Right.
Or as my friend Blue Resident Human used to call her, Linda Mutilated Cow, which is kind of rude, but and I like Linda Howe. I don't agree with her a lot of the time, but every time I see her name, I think of his little name for her.
And
she
talks
that
also
about
was that was what she was famous for researching.
She was, exactly. Yeah, I thought it was a funny little name, but I could see why some people might take it the wrong way. But she, in this little tidbit that she wrote about, she said, and I'll quote from it, Jacques told me there was no block, quote, on the book, but that he had decided he needed to correct and update some lab information about the, quote, technological device, unquote, or, quote, material, unquote, retrieved from a 1945 UFO crash near the Trinity site where the first American atomic bomb was tested, blah, blah, blah. So that, at least that's what Linda Howe is saying, which totally goes along. But I'm also curious about the timing as well. The fact that all of these big, groundbreaking revelations, no pun intended, Vallee, are coming or kind of aligning at the same time makes me feel like there may be a little more going on in the background than we know.
Yeah. It looks suspicious is what it looks.
Sure. I mean, one of the people who gave a blurb for the book that appears on the back cover of that has been shown so far is none other than Christopher Mellon, right?
Right.
And Christopher Mellon last week he was also interviewed by Joe Rogan, and he's obviously talking about what they've been talking about since December of 2017, right? All these things with the now defunct the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, and all these things they've been promoting with by him and Lou Elizondo. So some people said, well, Chris Mellon probably has already read the manuscript, right? So probably knows what the hell is going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all feels very coordinated. all the new sort of UFO celebrities. But what's interesting to me is that I just feel weird about this involvement of Vallee. I know with the both of you as well, and the larger Where Did the Road Go panelist community, that we hold him in really high respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was a little shocked when he was in the Phenomenon documentary, talking about at least I hope if I'm remembering that correctly, talking about some sort of metal evidence and things like that, which was very un-Vallee in at least the way it was edited. Very heavy pro nuts and bolts ETH,
right,
which a lot of us don't associate Vallee with, but this just seems like it just seems so uncharacteristic of him, and I don't know, it just left me feeling really, really disturbed.
Agreed.
Yeah, exactly. It's, like you said, it's strange because Vallee has never been a big supporter of the stories of crashed flying saucers in the New Mexico desert, right? And he always felt that many of those stories were probably disinformation that were being exploited by some anonymous factions in the intelligence community in order to seethe chaos and a lot of infighting in the UFO community, and also to try to discredit individuals. People like Paul Benowitz. Was fed a lot of this information by the likes of Richard Doty, Bill Moore, who was also, mind you, like one of the first researchers who tried to uncover, or rather recover, the story of Roswell, because by that time, by the 1970s, Roswell had been all but forgotten.
Yeah.
That famous press release that the U.S. Air Army had recovered a crash disk. And all that jazz, and then turned out that they changed the story and said, well, it's actually a weather balloon.
Yeah.
And at that time, nobody thought, oh my God, it's a cover-up. No, they said, well, okay, I guess they made a mistake, because back in those days, that people believed in the government. Why wouldn't they? The government, these are the guys who beat the Nazis. And to manage to create a nuclear bomb, so of course they would believe it. They wouldn't think twice about it. But then, okay, so Roswell was buried, and then by the late 1970s, or rather by the late 1980s and early 90s, everything in ufology, especially in American ufology, was all about the crashed saucers and the autopsies of alien bodies, and maybe the secret dealings that the government was doing with the aliens, and maybe the secret organizations like Majestic 12 that were, dealing with this with the utmost secrecy, and Area 51 and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I told a friend of mine, it really feels like after that hula loop like deflated, like a weather balloon, that ufology was veering to other directions, which to me were more interesting.
Yeah.
And now it's like we're going back to 1997. It's like, right. let's go back.
Is John Lear gonna start, putting out material again? Are we gonna hear about battles and underground bases and things? It's like a weird deja vu. And I guess being sort of the, kind of a crusty old guy that's seen it all before, watching people gobble this stuff up again, it's I guess that's one of the benefits of watching a particular field for so long, is you get to see these cycles that and know the history in a way that I think a lot of these newer people who've maybe in the past 5 or 10 years or even more recently have gotten immersed in the subject, they haven't seen all of the history. And while we're talking about the history, I just finished and really recommend Adam Gorightly's new book, Saucers, Spooks, and Kooks, UFO Disinformation in the Age of Aquarius. Have either of you guys read that yet?
Nope, not yet.
Yeah, well, I designed the cover.
Yeah, you designed the cover, right? Duh, how did I forget that? I mean, it's such a... I really felt like I was in a time machine reading that book, because it took me back to pre-internet ufology, when I would go to the bookstore and grab the Excluded Middle or Steam Shovel Press or something like that. And I was part of a UFO study group, and the way you learned about these things is just kind of through word of mouth or newsletters or zines and things like that. And it was so wild reading that book and seeing all the stuff that, Red Pill was just talking about, that was just seemed so utterly silly because we've seen it all before. And now it's like the needle skipped on the record, and we jumped back right into that hot mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just finished reading the book, Adam's book, last week also, and there's a lot of information that I didn't know at the time, because I had already read Greg Bishop's Project Beta, right, which centers around the story of Paul Benowitz and how he got into this disinformation campaign against him by the hands of Richard Doty, who may or may not have worked on his own accord. It's still unknown. Some people say, well, he went rogue, went out of the reservation with Paul, but there's a lot of new added information here that Adam including the whole thing with Project Serpo, a story that broke, I want to say, in 2006. Some people saying basically, there was some kind of exchange program between the United States government and the aliens, and some American astronauts went to the aliens' home planet, and some of the aliens stayed here, and then after a few years, some of those Americans returned and others didn't, and some even died. And all this mythology, and once again, the same people involved in previous mythologies that were unfolded or they started to infect ufology are once again playing the same game,
Yeah.
and makes you wonder, if we're not back to some another type of disinformation campaign orchestrated by someone else. But obviously, then the big question is Vallee part of it, or is he being duped, or has he actually, uncovered something truly remarkable? I mean, we obviously need to give the man the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree, and it's the deja vu is just remarkable. But if this is yet another disinformation campaign, it is the methods of disinformation have progressed. I think they've grown with the connected sort of world that we live in, because we have really high up people now involved in this, and we have it's not Steam Shovel Press or the Excluded Middle or Bill Burns UFO magazine or something like that. It's the New York Times and the Washington Post and major news outlets that are covering it seriously. And I know, probably the last time I was on this show, there was a bit, I know I had a bit of disagreement with Red Pill and some of the other guys, probably everybody. I felt like I was kind of hanging out in the wind for saying that the tone had changed of mainstream media coverage. And I really think that was a notable moment. But what we're seeing right now is not only as the tone changed, is all this cast of characters are have their hands in so many different little parts of the UFO story and the mythology. And that's what's kind of freaking me out right now. I have to say, though, I really believe that this report that's coming out, if it actually does materialize in June, I think it's going to disappoint a lot of people. I had someone contact me that I trust pretty well to know what they're talking about, and that's the impression that this person gave me, is that this whole government project is not really very well funded, and it's kind of running on fumes, and it's not going to be there's not tons of money pouring into this to research these things. I think a lot of people probably who are mixed in it now, and from various levels of government or private industry and things like that, I suspect very strongly that they're just kind of throwing up their hands too and going, okay, what do we say? There's not going to be all these people waiting for this tremendous revelation and, once again, capital D, disclosure. They're not going to I don't think that's coming. I think there's going to be a real major serious depression among a lot of ufologists and the UFO people online who are really expecting something big. I really don't think something big is coming, but I guess we'll see.
So I just saw a quote from Harry Reid today that said, Harry Reid corrects the records on his claim that Lockheed has UFO remnants. I've never believed Lockheed had anything in that regard, even though a lot of people believe that. I don't. And it's like, isn't this part of all that they've been saying the whole time, that there were these remnants of, and materials?
This is the second time that he corrects his supposed statements with regards to the idea of crashed saucers and that. If you remember, one of Leslie and Ralph Lumetel's articles on the New York Times also quoted him saying that he thought that there had been UFO crashes and that people had recovered the material, and then they had to correct the article saying, actually, no, that's not what Senator Reid really said that. He said that maybe there had been crashes, but he didn't know for certain. And now this is the second time that he says, no, I never said that I believe that Lockheed has this material.
It's so fascinating to me to watch all of this unfolding, and I have to think it's either two sort of ways that it's unspooling here. And one is that there really is some solid evidence, and word is kind of getting around in circles where we normally don't think people talk about these things. And with starting with the Tic Tac video and the more recent sort of dubious footage. But there is sort of this, it feels like the people in the government are sort of playing with ufologists, but they're also playing with the public. And for me, it has to break down either that there really is something and people are starting to talk about it openly, but perhaps the message is kind of getting muddled, and some of the people involved are more sort of charlatans or just more credulous than they should be, or else this really is a massive disinformation campaign, and a lot of people are going to be hung out to dry, and then we'll be left where we were before it all started happening, with everyone just as confused as they were before. I mean, does anyone else think there's any other possibility here?
No, not really.
I mean, there might be. I mean, you're talking about credulity among the public, and also we should consider that credulity could also happen among members of the government.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Ufology right now is giving a lot of credit to Senator Harry Reid because he's saying the things they want to hear. But that doesn't mean that maybe Senator Reid is as gullible as anyone, any fanatic of the UFO field. I mean, take, for example, the other person that is being quoted in the back cover of this upcoming book, the Honorable Paul Hellyer, who used to be, I think, Canada's Secretary of Defense, I think in the 1960s, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong. And Hellyer for a while was the darling of ufology because, this is a high-ranking officer, from a government that is taking UFOs seriously. The problem is that it soon became evident that Paul Hellyer believes any cockamamie story that is running around in any, two-time UFO forum on the internet, and the guy takes it as gospel. And he believed that, aliens dress as nuns when they have a fancy to play a bit of, jackpot or roulette at Las Vegas casino, and the guys believed it. That's why nobody started to. Soon, people didn't start to take him seriously, and now, oh my God, he's being quoted in this Vallee's book, which gave me it rubbed me the wrong way when I first saw that. Like the first thing that jumped at me, like, Paul Hellyer, are you kidding me here, Jacques?
It's like they're aiming to please the pop culture UFO people with this, which is not something that Vallee has ever done before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like there's this group of cool kids forming, and I'm sure it's a hell of a good time to hang out with a lot of these folks when they're getting together and talking smack about UFOs, but it's just puzzling, and I don't know. I mean, there's so many indications that there are people taking it seriously, and there is a lot of effort going towards, getting some insight into this phenomenon. But at the same time, this cheesy stuff. I was looking at Vallee's book, and it looks like something someone slapped together in Aldous PageMaker in 1997 or something. And just the tenor of it and the people that he's suddenly surrounded by is shocking. It's kind of, the whole thing feels really absurd. Like, once again, one step forward into some sort of respectability, and then it looks like two steps back into a bunch of these kooks, like Adam Gorelli calls them. It's spooks and kooks.
So here's the thing. I have no doubt that the government has been studying this stuff from day one. I don't think they've ever stopped.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think they're going to tell us about it.
In fact, they're trying to rewrite the history about their involvement with this. And this is something that Chris Mellon is actively doing. He did it on Joe Rogan when kind of like gave the impression that prior to the OSAP and the ATIP program, there was no one collecting all these reports from military pilots. Nobody had any interest in that. It was kind of like, thrown into the wayside or something. It's like, are you kidding me, son? Give me a break. So what about the 1976 Iran dogfight?
Right.
That even was part of Leslie Kane's book. And that there was a confidential memo that was released by the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, and then from that it landed in the office of the CIA. And are you telling me that after it landed in the office of the CIA, then they threw it into the trash bin? No.
I was watching. I'm sure you guys watched the big revelation video of Corbell and Knapp about the triangle, the
right
night vision triangle things. I was just watching. Is it Corbell or Corbell? I don't know if I'm saying it properly. But watching him. Watching him just ecstatically going off about this footage he received, and thinking, like, have you ever heard of Benowitz? Have you? Why would you? Just watching someone get handed some really kind of vague, not very substantive footage, and just parading it like it's the final proof that we all need, and just being absolutely uncritical. Like, have you not read the history? Do you not realize how stuff was fed to people to discredit them? Like there's no skepticism. No. There's absolutely no focus on, no understanding that maybe you're getting hoodwinked here. Like, could you at least say that, hey, I got this footage. It's from a source I think is legitimate and official, but caveat emptor, people.
It's entertainment.
Yeah,
very much. You think you nailed it. Yeah.
There's actually this quote that Golightly included in the book that is from Greg Bishop. His book, It Defies Language. And I liked it so much that I decided to grab a screen grab. And it says, in the case of UFO leaks, the general researcher profile is well known. All that needs to be done is to feed information about a previously unknown event or sensational revelations about an old case to the target, who gleefully spreads the story around the grapevine. In recent years, many researchers have become savvy to this method of deception, and most are now more careful before making announcements. These may have caused the disinfo mill to abandon the lone UFO researcher in favor of anonymous postings on various internet sites and blogs. But of course, I guess the disinfo mill had a godsend in the case of Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer Corvell II Esquire.
Yeah, it's like all you would have to do is read the past 30 years of history to realize that you can't just take something that's given to you without very, very deep skepticism, especially if it's allegedly coming from some quasi-government or alphabet agency source. And watching these guys just, giddily sharing this stuff as if it's the ultimate proof of aliens. It's just so depressing to watch.
And also, you're telling me that this is the very best footage that the the military has of UFOs.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, why aren't we seeing people from the military coming out and acknowledging this stuff publicly? Why aren't they the ones having the press conferences?
Yeah, well, they'll tell you, well, this is the best way to get it out to the community, and then build pressure to release more. I mean, they can come up with dozens of reasons why it's best to give it to, some blogger somewhere. Yeah, it's.
But my point is, if they really wanted this information to be known, there would be a national press conference about it. I mean, this is a big deal. If the military is acknowledging that there are legitimate unknowns in our airspace that we don't think are from Earth, I mean, that's not something you just put out as entertainment, unless, of course, that's your goal.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And obviously there's also the announcement that there's going to be some kind of internal investigation with regards to the Navy and the Pentagon's dealing with all of these, So maybe with that, we may finally get some sort of that press conference. We might finally see, someone from the Pentagon publicly and on the record addressing all of this, because for the most end, it's been just people on the internet and the usual suspects. Every time that some journalists goes and tries to confirm some of the things that has been said about the ATIP program and Louis Elizondo, the Pentagon's official spokesperson, Susan Gao, says the same thing. Louis Elizondo was not involved with the ATIP program. And every time that happens, there is an uproar. How dare she? She's the enemy. She's the villain of the story. And then Senator Harry Reid, in his shiny armor, riding a white horse, goes and sets the record straight with this letter, with that very nice stationery, very impressive, the same from the office of Senator Harry Reid to whomever it may, serve. Louis Elizondo or fanatic. He performed his duties admirably, blah, 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 blah. And people said, well, this settles it, once and for all. And I got a lot of backlash when I said, well, no, I don't want to see, I don't want to see the saying so of this former senator. I want to see someone who is working right now on the Pentagon going and saying, Louis Elizondo worked for us, and he was the director of that program, among other things, Yeah,
it's been so funny to watch that back and forth too. Come on, it shouldn't be that hard. All we need is someone official to say exactly that. Yes, he worked for ATIP, and then here you go. It's over. But this back and forth. It is just yet another absurdity of this whole thing.
Maybe it's by design. that maybe they decided that by doing that and showing that Elizondo is being punished for coming out with the truth.
Right. Shades of Bob Lazar and his disappearing record, yeah.
Everybody loves to support the underdog, the little guy who is up the man.
True.
So I don't know if this is actually something that was designed to make him more, I don't know, endearing or more, approachable. I don't know. I'm speculating here, folks.
Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing, of course, is that no one ever believes politicians until they're telling you the thing you want to hear. When we were talking, you just mentioned Bob Lazar. One of my listeners had said something about how I really have it out for Bob Lazar. And honestly, I don't know what to make of Bob Lazar. I don't know if the guy is a master manipulator or if he believes everything he's saying. He comes across as completely genuine. It's just the story is so unlikely. Like, I feel like he was used, if nothing else, because if the government's giving you top secret clearance and you're out there telling people about it and bringing people out to look at the spaceships and stuff, you're going to disappear.
Exactly. They should have killed him right there and then.
They don't need to make excuses about this either. I mean, you're violating the law because you're under top secret clearance.
Who's gonna miss Bob Lazar? Who's gonna miss just this dorky guy who worked at Los Alamos and then worked at Area 51? How many unmarked graves are between Las Vegas and Los Angeles in the desert out there? I mean, didn't these guys see the movie Casino? so easy to disappear. Someone.
So Bob Lazar may be completely honest about everything he's saying, but it doesn't mean that any of it's real.
I don't think he's honest about his educational records, but that's something that nobody wants to mention now anymore.
I'm just getting more skeptical of a lot of people over the years as I've again watched these cycles of interest and underground bases and alien wars and Serpo. I'd almost forgotten about the whole crazy Serpo thing until I read Adam's book, and eventually you just stop caring. you just kind of stop paying attention to it because it's all right. Been there, done that. Let's change this up a little bit. If we're going to get disclosure, I don't want it to be through some clown with a story that can't be substantiated. And that's why I really felt like when Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal's stuff started hitting the New York Times, I was shocked, first of all, and knowing what the New York Times does as far as vetting sources and things like that, I really felt like maybe something was going to come out of that, and then here we are. It's the circus again.
Yeah, but I don't think they actually vetted their sources that well in that article, Michael. I mean,
it doesn't look like it as well as they should have, for sure.
Yeah.
Because of, like you said, the Harry Reid retraction was like the first real glaring, thing that I recall with it. And maybe the New York Times, maybe they just said this is just such gold, as far as clicks go, and everybody was talking about it. It certainly bumped up their revenue and probably got them more subscribers. I hate to think that because I think they're pretty solid, with certain biases, of course, but as far as fact checking and things like that, they're often a paragon of sourcing and so forth. But who knows? Speaking just as totally tangent, but I really did like Ralph Blumenthal's book about John Mack. If you guys get a chance to see that, or if anybody's listening, it's great. It's now Blumenthal does come across as credulous. Things like when he's talking about like the Linda Corteil fiasco and Gulf Breeze and things like that. He's more credulous, obviously, than we are, and I think that a lot of people who listen to the show probably are. But as far as just like a history of UFO, like a capsule, an encapsulation of UFO history, and particularly the abduction lore, it's pretty good. Like, it's a good book. It's a book I would give to someone who would say, hey, I'm interested in this UFO abduction stuff. What's it all about? It does a good job of chronicling the history, and it's a really good insight into John Mack. And for instance, I never knew how like well connected he was in sort of kind of New Age consciousness circles. Like, you know, I knew he had been at Esalen and things like that, but like a lot of really interesting people when it comes to like psi and consciousness research and stuff like that. Like he was more embedded in different circles. Like he did holotropic breath work with Stan Groff, and I had never known that. And you can kind of tell a lot of that informs his sort of broader understanding of the abduction experience than just aliens. So
Yeah.
really cool book though, and a really, really nice portrait of Mack, who although I think he went like a lot of people do in this field, you know, went a little too far sometimes. You can tell he really was, like the book says, he was a seeker, and he really was trying to follow the truth as best as he could. So I really recommend that book. It took me back, and it really filled in a lot of interesting things about Mack that I had never known.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like John Mack reminds me in more than one way of Timothy Leary, right? He's another very highly respected, professional psychologist, from Harvard, that stumbles upon something very out of left field. In the case of Leary, psychedelic mushrooms, and then they cross this line that shouldn't be crossed by academicians, right? And they really got punished for doing that. Well, more with Leary, who ended up coming at one point.
Literally jailed.
Yeah, on the lam. And well, not with John Mack wasn't to that extreme, although for a while, he was like persecuted. He was almost like some kind of like a witch trial against him, trying to take out his tenure from him for daring to be interested in these sort of topics.
Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons they went after him, and the book made it more explicit, and it made me understand that sort of persecution of him was, he was a psychiatrist, and he was treating and a historian, but he was working with abductees or experiencers, and the people of the mainstream psychiatric folks at Harvard, they were saying, well, that from their perspective, abductions weren't real and these people's experiences weren't real. Right. So the fact that Mack was working with them as a licensed therapist, it made I can understand that, to these mainstream psychologists and psychiatrists, he was validating something that they believe was delusional, and they believed that he was harming them, or possibly harming them by doing that. So it gave me a deeper understanding of that movement to sort of, look into what he was doing. and ultimately he was okay. You know, he kept his tenure and everything, but that's the kind of thing that this book did. It really broadens the understanding of what he was experiencing and why they were going after him, things like that. But as for the Leary comparison, that's absolutely spot on. And Mac was also enjoyed psychedelics as well. The book talks about his various use of psychedelics and how that also contributed to his understanding of a more broader consciousness-based conception of abduction. So that's a really good analogy there.
Well, you know, Dr. Bem's research down here in Cornell, the psi research he did, the research is so solid that you now have scientists coming out saying, well, you know, we know this isn't real, thus maybe we need to start questioning our own research methods.
Right. Yeah. It's the methodology they're going after.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like you just have that mindset in academia and you know, mainstream science where it's like we know all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, or we know, maybe not we know all the answers, but we know what you are saying is garbage.
Right.
And we don't want to hear it, that bias that's built into things when the scientific method is supposed to be, you know, very
unbiased.
Very, very unbiased and not based on inbuilt assumptions. It's supposed to be a method, but we all know that's not the way it plays out. Well, and science should be conservative. Like, I understand that. At the same time, when you're saying that Bem's research invalidates the methodology that is okay when it's statistically analyzing other subjects, then something weird is going on.
Yeah, it's a paradigm that they don't want challenged. And it's funny because you look at, like, okay, so our evidence for psi over the years is extremely strong, yet it's not accepted. And part of the argument is that we don't know how it works. And it's like, but that's the point. If we don't know how it works, that's science's job to figure that out, not to bury it. But at the same time, we have something like dark matter, where we have absolutely zero evidence for it, but that's accepted.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something that Avi Loew mentioned to Rogan when he was on his show, that there's a lot of scientists out there that they, in order to show how smart they are, they make careers out of things that are ultimately unprovable. You know, like string theory, something like that. There's zero evidence, zero
demonstrable evidence.
Yeah, observable evidence, I guess, is one to say that string theory is true, and yet, because they are so enamored with their equations, they're so pretty in their eyes. I mean, they are so harmonious, and they work so well on paper that the people can make a really, really nice career about it. And then here's this guy who managed to dare to proclaim this heresy of saying, you know what, maybe that object that crossed our solar system, maybe that object was very special. Maybe that object was even of some kind of like synthetic, non-natural origin, and maybe we should try to look out for more of those. And now the guy is being crucified. I think I read something about a recent conference in which Loew and Jill Tarter, the famous SETI founder, the one that was the inspiration for Carl Sagan's book Contact, and then for the movie played by Jodie Foster. She entered into a huge fight with Avi Loew that was so nasty and so awkward and so uncomfortable that the organizers of the conference had to remember to the panelists, please try to be respectful, and also please try to, don't say anything too controversial.
Yeah, his book's fantastic too, by the way. I feel like I'm like doing book reports tonight on the show, but I thought it was a spectacular and short, concise summary of why he believes this object was artificial.
Yeah.
Oumuamua. I finally can say it properly without stumbling. So yeah, it's a fascinating time, like this past year, with all the how everybody was. Remember how everybody was commenting like, "Oh, that's so 2020," and just because things just seem so bizarre. The pandemic, of course, on top of everything else, but seeing all these UFO stories, and just yesterday or the day before, I saw a report about fungal life on Mars.
Yes.
The paper.
Yeah.
You guys saw that?
Yep.
And that looked pretty good. And I looked at the paper itself, and I read the full paper, and then somebody let me know that the guy behind that paper has been sort of known as a crackpot, and the journal was not really the most respected journal. It's one of these sort of pay for play sort of journals, and it's just, it feels like we're in this kind of in between state where it seems like there's big things that are just ready to be revealed. The curtain's being slowly pulled aside, and we can tell there's something behind it, and then all of a sudden the curtain gets closed again, and people go crazy on Twitter and rinse and repeat. But with Oumuamua and the Tic Tac video originally, and then the discussion of the government program and things like that, seems like we were possibly making some progress, and then the circus arrives again.
Yeah.
And here we are. Are we going to be doing this show 10 years from now, after beating our heads against our desks for 10 more years of alleged upcoming revelations and then disappointments again? Are we stuck in PK Dick's black iron prison? Is it some sort of time loop where we're just going to constantly think something big is coming and it never does? I don't know.
I think that's exactly what the major UFO field is. Because we don't really know much more than we knew, like when you look at the way that people approach the subject, we don't know a lot more than we knew 30 years ago.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was people like Vallee and Keel and such that kind of opened doors to look at this stuff differently. So that's, I think, why it's so surprising that Vallee seems to have gone with the more standard approach all of a sudden. But we don't know that he has, because the book's not out yet, so we can't say for sure.
No, we can't say for sure. And, I would love nothing more than for him to have some metal with strange isotopes and provenance that can be traced back to this alleged crash. And I would love nothing more than to get something really substantial out of this. And as Red Pill said, maybe we will. We can't write that off. But the circus atmosphere,
yeah,
and the maybe a little pejorative, but the clowns that are surrounding him at this point just really worry me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because all these also like I said before, it feels like we're back to 1997. All this also feels like a big validation or vindication of Philip Corso and his Day After Roswell.
Right.
One of the most shocking things that Vallee said on his appearance on Joe Rogan's show was when James Fox point blank ask him, "Do you believe Philip Corso was telling the truth?" And Vallee, to my shock, says, "I do." And it's like, what? And then you go and read his journal, the last one, the volume 4, which he talks about him meeting Corso when Vallee was involved with Bigelow's needs, and they were very interested in checking his story. And Vallee shows a lot of skepticism about what Corso was saying, because Vallee, being someone who was at the beginning of the story of Silicon Valley, he knew a lot about the history of all these novel technologies that have quickly transformed our world, like fiber optics, microprocessors, the semiconductors, all these technologies that Corso claimed that had come out of a wreckage of a flying saucer that he handled to different industries so they could develop them. And Vallee knew that story was crap. It is untenable. And yet, he was very impressed not only by the credentials of Corso and by his integrity. Also was very impressed by his memory. The guy was sharp as a tack, even when he was, I think he was in his 70s by then. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. So to him, it was like a big mystery, Mm-hmm. I mean, to say, well, here's this guy who's totally believable, and yet at the same time, maybe he was fed this information in order to automatically discredit him and say, well, this guy says that fiber optics came from outer space, and we know that's not true. And yet, it gives the impression that maybe there was something there in Corso's story buried beneath all the disinformation, and also all the errors that Bill Burr, the guy who co-wrote the book, all the errors that he inserted into the manuscript because he was desperately trying to reach the publisher's deadline. They wanted to release the book to coincide with the 50th anniversary of the Roswell crash. And so Corso always claimed that he never managed to see the final galleys of the manuscript. So he never managed to see all these things that he claimed that Bill Burr got wrong.
I wasn't aware of that part of it. I know it was rushed. I feel like it's another example of like the past that we thought was kind of accepted as garbage. Yeah. Largely, the Corso's book, people just kind of stopped talking about it and thinking about it. I have it on my shelf right behind me, but I kind of snicker when I look at it. Go, those days. But now it's back. So
it's well, I mean, all this stuff goes in cycles.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like a merry-go-round.
Maybe the next announcement's going to be that they have an alien autopsy film they're going to release.
Right.
Well, that's always I mean, there's all those rumors. I mean, Christopher Green, who was the guy who was overlooking the Stargate psychic spy program that was being developed by Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ at SRI.
Right.
And then he went to get involved with Bigelow, also with underneath. And then he left that and he became a medical doctor and all that. Now he's involved with Gary Nolan's research into which is, to me, is one of the most interesting actual developments that have happened in the field in the last 20, 30 years. The idea that they have managed to actually track down this portion of the brain, the caudat putamen, then seemed to me deeply involved with mystical experiences, and maybe even with what we now still refer to as alien abductions. So those guys work together, and obviously we mentioned before that Nolan has also worked with Vallee and studying these alleged alien or UFO metal samples. But Kit Green also was trying for a long time to track down information about alleged saucer crashes and alleged alien autopsies, trying to see who claimed to have been involved in the autopsies, whether they were credible or not. And yes, at one point, Green was paying attention to the infamous Antilles video that for a while, a few people said, well, maybe this is credible. And Green was saying, well, this is not credible, but that doesn't mean that there are not actual videos of actual alien autopsies out there, or maybe that there are also fake alien autopsies that are used by the U.S. military as some kind of like training program to see, to test people. How will they react? How will they react if they're shown this information? Will they crack? Will they go and become whistleblowers like maybe Bob Lazar? We just don't know, but we do know that Kit Green and the NEEDS guys, they were interested in trying to find information about alleged alien autopsies.
Mm-hmm. Well, and let's not forget that the alien autopsy thing was a big national television thing.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Promoted by Fox.
Yep.
And right now, who is the main outlet of UFO information? Tucker Carlson.
Right? Yeah.
Fox. And which was the program that managed to release all these stories about alien autopsies and recovered crashes for the Generation X's of which I am a member of, the X-Files, which were broadcast by Fox. So it's almost like Rupert Murdoch. This is the one behind all of this, man.
Well, did they also do that show that was like UFOs Revealed, where Falcon?
Oh, UFO Cover Up Live?
Yeah. Was that Fox as well, where where Falcon talked about the, how the aliens love strawberry ice cream? Was that Fox too? I'm not sure, but
I don't remember. I do remember that Adam said that program was co-produced, but not only by Americans, but also by Russians.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. That was a point that I read in that book that I had not known as well. Yeah. So here we are again, man. Around and around and around we go.
And then people wonder why people like us are like jaded about this stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what an understanding of history does. That is the reason I wish more of these online UFO people took some time and just go back and read some books and see how all this has happened before.
Yeah, but again, when they're using some of that old stuff as, oh no, this was real. That's how you keep those people in the dark, because they're like, oh, look, they revealed some of it before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Adam shows this is like a big infomercial for Adam's book. Adam showed how the KGB managed to try to do those little games of publishing in some obscure Indian newspaper this story claiming that the HIV virus had been developed in a laboratory, right?
What? It was developed what?
the HIV virus, the AIDS virus.
Yeah.
And then people forget all about it.
No. What did he? What? So I heard that part. I missed what you said after that.
So the idea is that the KGB get this thing published in this Indian newspaper, and they bury it, and they forget all about it, and they let some years pass, and then all of a sudden they resurface the information as almost like another outlet. They retake the story, and then they use the Indian newspaper as a reference.
What was the story?
Like, well, this verse was uncovered by this, and then that's how you get that story circulating again, and also getting more traction until eventually, like Adam rightly says, it became a classic trope of conspiracy thinking in America in the late 1990s.
And what story was it? I missed. That's what I missed.
Oh, the story that the HIV was created by the Americans in a secret military laboratory as a biological weapon to be used against blacks, against Hispanics, and against the gay community.
Right. Gotcha. Yep. And it was huge. I have a book on my bookshelf right here. I'm kind of ashamed I have it, but it was written by a guy I can't, because my eyes are not so good, but it's called Emerging Viruses or something like that. And it took that little breadcrumb trail that RPJ just talked about and ran with it to the point where it's an entire book about how AIDS was created as a biowarfare agent. And back in my conspiracy-minded days, that was an appealing thing to grab onto. It was just part of the X-Files sort of mythos that the government is creating these terrible Of course, the government did create all sorts of bioweapons, but when you see the where this came from and how easy it is to drop a reference in an Indian an Indian newspaper by some Russian disinfo guy, and then just pick up on it a year later or 2 years later, and then so the person who says, "Oh, this is interesting, I'm going to check on it," they look, and then, "Oh, wow, this was actually printed 2 years ago. It has to be true," and then it just blows up. Same with UFOs. Same with every sort of conspiracy, and that's why I took a hard exit from conspiracy land and wrote about it this past couple of years. I watched so many people go down these dark roads into conspiracies that were just like horrific and just disempowering and really like ridiculous. but so many people in the paranormal community got swept up in this, and there's the whole conspirituality phenomenon where yoga teachers are out, have become like some of the most vehement QAnon people, and the whole vaccination conspiracies and all that. I mean, it's another example of this cycle turning.
Not only,
but getting crazier though, getting even more detached from reality.
Not only that, but that stuff is generally a symptom of us not trusting the government, not trusting the powers that be. But yet, we think they're going to tell us the truth about UFOs.
Right. Yeah. It's actually made me like appreciate mainstream media. Like I used to be like, the MSM, I was one of those people too, but the mainstream media in a lot of cases, like they fact check things, and then you can find out how they fact check those things. There's a reason why something is mainstream, but it's this absolute rejection of all authority and all media that has turned everything so upside down. And it used to be that just weirdos like me and you guys probably would say, "Oh yeah, well they don't want you to know about that," or them.
Sure.
And nowadays, it's grandparents on Facebook, one of the worst vectors of propaganda conspiracy of all time. It's radicalized, old people in Middle America who are flaunting the craziest of conspiracies now.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling how this everything's gotten so just upside down so quickly.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it feels well. I mean, and I say this as the only non-American right now in this roundtable, right?
Yes.
As an outside observer, how I feel this is a very American thing, right? Not about conspiracies, because obviously conspiracies running rampant in every country in different ways, but how in the United States it's almost as if the American Constitution protects the God-given rights of every American to believe any cockamamie story. It's protected by your Constitution, freedom of speech and all of that. And this is kind of like unique in the world. It's like no, it shouldn't be that. But to the American is the idea that no. Freedom means I have the right to believe there are, moon men that are, sending me ciphered message through my ham radio every night. And you don't have the right to say I'm wrong.
Right, it's my opinion. I got my opinion. It's just as valid as your opinion.
Well,
with social media, I swear, like sometimes I regret that every person in the world now has a bullhorn in which to amplify just the most absurd and dangerous garbage. Yeah. And the fact that what drives clicks and eyeballs and therefore money and profits to these companies is people angry with each other, is the most outrageous stuff. And so they can't stop. They don't want to stop it. Zuckerberg may say, he wants to clean things up, but he can't. Like the algorithm itself fuels dissension, and the algorithm fuels the outlandish and just the absurd, and it's just this monster. It's like eating our society alive. And I think a lot has come out. Good things have come out of social media too, but but just the inherent nature of it that just seems to generate dissension and to make people angry, need to force their opinion on you, because instead of in the past we would just walk by that person, or flame wars on the internet were like kind of entertainment and fun to watch and listen to, but now it's like it's all a flame war. It's like a giant dumpster fire.
So the two things I was going to say there. Okay, I forgot one.
Sorry.
with Vallee's book, they're interviewing people who were children back in 1945.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the very first thing that comes to mind to me is how accurate could these people's memory be? Now, they could be very accurate, but I mean, memories formed as children that, have been holding on that long, there's no way to validate that, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is concerning too. I thought of that when I read that description as well. If this turns out to be just another crash with, indeterminate physical evidence that, people are going to argue about until they're tired and move on to something else, I'm going to be really disappointed.
Yeah.
Because like Red Pill said, if this is Vallee's like last big book, perhaps. I mean, He may have. I hope he has a lot more books in him with better covers and design than this one. Sure, but if this is like kind of his swan song, then it's a real sad way to kind of cap your legacy when you've had such brilliant material that has just expanded the subject in so many ways.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is that part of the problem nowadays is that people don't seem to be able to separate out belief from fact. Like, so many people, if they believe something, it by default it makes it true, and they don't seem to be able to separate out the fact that their beliefs may not be 100% correct. Like, there may be other interpretations, other ways of looking at things. You know, and especially in the paranormal fields, people are just like, you know, oh, I know all the answers because I believe this is the truth, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we're so invested with our beliefs. They are we are identified to them to such length. Maybe because I was just thinking about this. Maybe because there are so many other aspects of our lives that have become so abstract as and meaningless. Like, you know, like maybe 200 years ago, I could say, well, you know, I'm Miguel, I'm the carpenter of the town, you know, and I will identify with my profession. Okay, I'm the carpenter. That's not only what I do, but that's who I am. And Michael is the blacksmith, and Seriah is, I don't know, the keeper of the records, whatever. And now our jobs in this digital economy are becoming more and more and more abstract and meaningless. You go to a cocktail party. So what do? Oh, I'm the PR manager of the accountant division of my company. Okay, but what do you do? And maybe the guy needs like 1 hour just to explain to an outsider whatever it is he does or she does for a living. You know, it's kind of
right.
And then that's why. Okay, now without that as something to identify myself, what do I do? Well, I cling to my beliefs. I believe that the Patriots are the best team in the NFL or something. I believe that, I don't know, Canelo is the best boxer in the world. And I believe that an alien craft crashed in New Mexico in 1947. And this is not only what I believe, this is who I am.
Right,
and if you attack this, you're not only attacking you're attacking me personally.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Well, that's a super point. And we have self-fulfilling reality tunnels that we can just go live in online, and we are all online, especially much more so this past year. And if you want to believe that Bill Gates put a 5G chip in your vaccine, and it's all part of the Great Reset, which is going to outlaw paper currency and blah 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 blah.
Right.
There's a whole lot of people who will, get online with you and reinforce those beliefs. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's who you are. And you're not the guy who is the IT person for a server farm that just copies and pastes stuff into spreadsheets. You are a warrior for truth, and that truth is that the world is flat and Bill Gates is a reptilian.
Right.
And you've got thousands of people in a Facebook group who are just sending you confirmatory evidence every day and taking you even deeper into your self-identified rabbit hole. I mean, it's a wonder. And I absolutely agree. It's like, remember, just think back, like pre-social media, okay? Even because we're all old enough, we remember that. A lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
And I feel terrible for them. But let's say, you got in a political argument with somebody. Oh, I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. It was, you basically argued about whether, taxes on corporations are good, or whether the social safety net is, sucking the economy. Things that like kind of everybody could sort of agree on within a circumscribed bit of reality. And now there isn't anymore. It's exploded into a million different little subcultures and sub-communities. And if nothing is real, then everything is unreal. And so you're totally right. I think I love that idea that people don't really have an identity anymore. So they so readily are subsumed by these weird cultures, these subcultures, and that becomes who they are. It's a perfect analogy.
Back, before I even started Where Did the Road Go, I remember looking up a bunch of John Keel talks and stuff. And there was one where he was on, I think it was Fort Fest one year. And someone asked him, there was some book being published about Roswell by a witness who was 2 years old when it happened, and they hypnotized them, and they had this whole story now from the hypnotized 2-year-old. And they said, what do you think of this? And Keel went, I think it's garbage. And why would you think that would even be a thing, and that's kind of what we need is someone like that, someone like John Keel who has that respect to just kind of flat out say that's junk,
Yeah, but nobody wants to be John Keel because remember how he died? He died penniless and
sure,
and bitter.
But he had no problem telling it like it was,
Sure. Yeah, that at least he always had integrity, especially with himself in what he said.
Yeah.
Said. And this idea of Roswell or Roswellian type stories, the first-hand witnesses, and when obviously all of them who were adults at the time are all dead. And then the researchers had no choice but try to get the second-hand witnesses, the son of the guy who was the fireman who went.
Right.
Came, and the guy remembers something his dad told him one night. And then the third-hand witness, I was friend with with the son of the guy, and I remember we were drinking in a bar, and he told me this, and then he got it more and more diluted, more and more nonsensical. I guess at least here, yes, they have first-hand witnesses, but as you rightly pointed out, they were children, and so much has happened in their lives. God knows, how accurate their recollections of the events were, how much pop culture has probably twisted,
right?
The recollections, and
exactly, and how easy it is to confabulate, which is the reason why when Bud Hopkins said to me, "Why don't you come up to visit me in Manhattan, and I will regress you, and maybe we'll find out what happened to you when you were a kid," I said no, because I can't trust myself. I'm a creative person. I'm a writer. I create stories that aren't true, and if my brain can do all sorts of magical things. So if you regress me and I'll never believe it. First of all, because I don't trust myself. I also know I've had experiences in my life where I thought I remembered something and it never happened. People used to, crap all over Elizabeth Loftus and the False Memory Foundation and, say she was, aligned with the satanic, pedophiles and all that stuff, which again is having a resurgence, satanic panic. But we do make up crap. I mean, we do misremember things, and it's important to realize that. So Vallee and Paula, whatever her name is, going and interviewing people who were children, it's absurd. Red Pill it was silly listening to it, and we started laughing when you lay it out like what it really is. But that's the promo that we're seeing for this book.
Yeah. I mean, there may be more to it. Maybe they have some hard evidence, but we're not going to know until the book comes out. And I will be shocked if this book is revelatory in any way.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that because it's Jacques Vallee, but
Yeah.
I know. I think we're all in the same camp. It's like when your favorite band plays a crappy show or something,
yes.
or you've wanted to see some performer all your life, and you finally go see them, and you realize they're just kind of playing it rote and not really putting their heart into it. That's how I kind of feel.
Or one of your favorite bands puts out an album and it's not good, and you're like, I want to like this, but this is awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happened to me. It happened to me. I was a huge fan of Michael Crichton.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I read Jurassic Park, awesome. Sphere, even more awesome. Congo, also a really good book. I didn't read the Andromeda Strain though. One of his time travel book, which is also awesome. And then his last book, which was about being very critical about the movement to acknowledge climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not that.
I know. I mean, I'm also a Crichton fan, and that was, you respect someone, and you're like a real fan of their work. And that something comes out of left field, it's that kind of shock that this, kind of hero that you've made has feet of clay, and we're all prone to that. I have my fingers crossed. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if Vallee's new book, as ugly as it is, turns out to be just really groundbreaking, and these metals are, irrefutably from off planet, and these kid witnesses are just so compelling, and I really want to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people were pointing out, well, how groundbreaking and revelatory can a UFO book really be? Because they are expecting instead to, first go on and write the groundbreaking paper in a peer-reviewed journal like Nature, whatever, and then you write the paperback book for mass consumption. But like we were discussing earlier with this theory of Martian mushrooms, there's a lot of problems also with trying to attempt that route. There's a lot of bias and backlash and a lot of red tape that people who are trying to put something that goes against the grain of academia, they find and they get those papers rejected. Gene Radin, in his book Real Magic, he says how first they got one of their articles about one of their experiments published in a very well-respected magazine, and then the editor of the magazine pulled out the article and struck it out of the journal's history, like saying this never happened. This was it's almost like in The Simpsons. We will never discuss this ever again until the end of time. And Radin was flabbergasted. Like, okay, can you at least point to us what was our mistake so we might correct them or edit it out? No. they never. They just knew they had made some kind of like major science heresy, and they were punished for it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should do a follow-up to this in a month.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's see if we're just curmudgeonly, gruff old skeptics, or if we, if we were right. I'd love to. And what keeps coming back to me is when I pre-ordered this book, it was called The Best Kept Secret. Groundbreaking research reveals a new UFO history.
Yeah.
What does that say when you look at what the book is titled now? And it's gone from being this sort of groundbreaking, a new history, to, well, here's a kind of sort of kept secret that might not be that groundbreaking, and it's about a little tiny piece of UFO history. I mean, it's just such an about face and to what it promised. And I really expected better of but I've expected better of a lot of people over the years in this field, and I think sometimes, for whatever reason, maybe they just give up. Maybe the money's good. Maybe they're tired.
Yeah.
Maybe they just want to make a splash.
Or they have a lapse of judgment. It happens to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe some kind of game. I was kind of like joking with someone on Twitter that maybe the Great Rosicrucian Night is using that age-old trick of burying the secret of all time beneath layers of absurdity and superstition in order to fool the uninitiated.
Interesting.
Yep. That's
hope.
like what they call blinds in occult books. Like you deliberately mess up the spell or put some weird component in there so the uninitiated don't hurt themselves, but the true initiates will get it. Will know what to substitute. Yeah.
All right. Well, that seems like a good place to stop. Mike, where can people find you?
Yeah, Michael M. Hughes, pretty much everywhere. I'm on all the social media, even the ones I've been criticizing tonight. So much enforced, but just on Michael M. Hughes, just look for me everywhere.
Still got your website?
Under that. MichaelMHughes.com.
Okay. All right. And Red Pill, you?
Well, depending on what happens next month, perhaps in a mental institution, on a padded room, in a force jacket. Was right.
Oh man! Okay, please make sure they let me in the cell with you once in a while, so we can scream in agony together.
Yeah. But before that, they can find my writings at the Daily Grail, www.grail.com. If you are able to support us on Patreon, then we will be greatly appreciated. We're trying to pull up new content for Patreon subscribers, including the idea of conducting streaming videos, commenting, current news or whatever. Maybe even trying to get people like Vallee to answer a few listener questions and whatnot. Nice. That's some of the things that we've been toying around. And also my own personal website, absurdbydesign.com. It's kind of like an art gallery where you can see my latest artistic commissions and also mention interviews, and podcasts in which I appear, like this one.
All right. Well, thank you both. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you, Seriah. It's awesome to be back.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons. Seriously, you people are the lifeblood of this show. And I want to give a special shout out to those pledging $10 or more. Allison Cook, Super Inframan, Eric Hervin, Tim, The 100th Monkey Project, Ad Noctum, Patricia Giaquinta, Alex Whitcomb, Alfred Tuttle, American Rambler, Andy McNamara, Barbara Fisher, Beverly Williamson, Big Boy Limina, Charles Davis, Chris Ernst, Craig Parmenter, David Moore, Denise Sarek, Dominic O'Malley, Edu Camahort, MTK, Eric Citron, J. Otto Bullitt, James Lattimore, Joanna Rojas, Jose A., Carla Mahoney, Kevin Schreck, Linz Jackson K., Luke Osborne, Jim and Sophie, Mark Bowley, Mark Brady, Matthew Sproul, Maddie, Nagatha Christie, Patricia W., Ray Benedetto, Riker and Stark, Roger Gonzalez, Sam Sheeron, Sedgder, Stone Wilderness, Tactical Therapist, Taylor, 36 Dingo, Vincent Treewell, Walker, Will Powell, William Lovelace, and Ren Collier. Thank you all so very much. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.